Introduction. When I first decided to write a book about habits, the topic seemed like such a natural follow-up to the other badass books. In the original You Are a Badass, I mentioned this little truism: our thoughts become our words. Our words become our beliefs. Our beliefs become our habits. And our habits become our realities. Habits are the only piece of the equation I had yet to delve into deeply. And I couldn't wait to get cracking. That is, until the following conversation with myself crawled up and sat on my chest. Me, habits. Of course. Why? They're the very sculptors of our realities. I'm going to write the fuck out of this book. Me, enjoying a tower of onion rings. A few days after giving up fried food. Are we going to write about how to purchase a gym membership and never use it? Or how to not stop cursing? Because we could write the fuck out of that. Me, oh my god, that's so true. My habits suck. What the hell am I thinking? I have the self-discipline of a toddler. I began listing all of the reasons why I was unqualified, unable, and unauthorized to write this book, how I was about to tank my brand, insult my readers, and inspire my publisher to ask for its money back. Then I realized, oh look, I'm excelling at a habit right now. That most unsavory of human habits, focusing on the negative. I'm blowing past the fact that I haven't touched a cigarette in over 2 decades even though I love smoking more than I love most people. That I'm a highly accomplished flosser, hydrator, gratituder, writer, bedmaker, meditator, and show-up-on-timer. And that I'll take a backpack and a high alpine trail over a stinky gym any day. Cursing and fried food, however. There's still work to be done around cursing and fried food. I bring this up because if you're reading this book with any skepticism about your stick-to-itiveness when it comes to habits, I want to remind you that nobody is perfect, and that we really can do anything we set our minds to, and that we all tend to sell ourselves short and focus on our failures instead of celebrating our victories. Even people who are successful beyond belief admit to occasionally letting negativity and feelings of inadequacy push them around. I've heard some say that every once in a while they'll forget how much they love what they do, ignore the standing ovation and rave reviews they receive from the outside world, and focus all their attention on that one stink bomb hater on Instagram who thinks they suck, hand him the bullhorn, and let his opinion drown out the cheering crowds. Mastering the powerful, positive mindset that's required to keep upping your habits game is all about staying aware, shifting your focus when you catch yourself wandering down woe is me lane, and consciously thinking thoughts that are aligned with where you want to go and who you want to become. When it comes to building great habits and ditching lame ones, your commitment to staying focused on who you're becoming regardless of where you are. Who you are right now is the mightiest power you've got. Contrary to popular belief, habits are more about who you're being than what you're doing. One of the main reasons we don't stick to the habits we'd love to adopt, or permanently give the heave-ho to the habits we'd love to lose, is that we focus on taking action, which is important, but we don't get on board emotionally and mentally, which is more important. Then, when our new habits get challenging or boring, we abandon them for something easier, or something more fun, or something that offers more immediate gratification, or something that tastes really good with ketchup on it. For example, let's say you've tried over and over to break your habit of spending more than you make. You've got a well-paying job and you put part of each paycheck toward your credit card bill and a little into your savings account, and you carefully map out your budget each month. Then, in spite of your careful planning, you find yourself going on trips and forensically investigating furniture sales and jovially shouting drinks are on me. And before you know it, your savings account is a ghost town and you're pleading on the phone with Pat at the collection agency again. Chances are excellent that deep down you're scared to stop overspending because you're trying to fill an emotional hole with stuff and experiences. Or maybe you come from a family full of spenders and you subconsciously worry you'll be judged or abandoned by them if you break with tradition and get your financial act together. It's essential when building good habits to focus on the whole enchilada: your head, your heart, and your hands. Otherwise the meditating stops. The fingernails start being bitten again. You're calm, sober repose at yet another passive-aggressive family gathering turns into all right, I've had enough. Who wants to play tequila truth or dare? My hope is that this book offers some fresh perspectives on proven habit-forming processes and helps you dethrone whatever obstacles you've allowed to lord over you in the past. I also hope that it makes the whole habit-building and busting experience easier by boiling down a seemingly complex process and doling it out into manageable, bite-sized exercises that you implement one day at a time. I want you to get rolling and figure out which tools work best for you so you can start seeing real results. The kind of results you've yet to behold, that actually stick around. I'm a coach, not a scientist, so while unsmartening you is a goal, nothing gets me all teary-eyed and verklempt like the hallelujah of a dream realized. You see that black belt you just karate'd your way into. You did that. Here, hold my snacks. I've got to get a picture of this. I'll start by briefly explaining what habits are and how they work. I'll help you become aware of the habits you've already got and figure out which ones have got to go. which new ones you'd like to create, and who you need to start being in order to pull this all off. I'll also get you good at setting no-nonsense boundaries so you can alert your tribe and yourself that your needs are now a priority, that you're creating the space, emotionally and physically, to allow yourself to fully flourish. And that yes, this being good at setting boundaries thing is a habit you're going to keep. Once we've got your heart and head on board, I'll help you pick one clearly defined habit to work on for the rest of the book. I'll walk you through a powerful 21-step process to either anchor in your new habit or permanently banish an old one, depending on what you choose. Ideally, you'll take the process day by day over the course of 3 weeks in order to keep the beast of overwhelm at bay. Give your new habit time to take hold, and keep the work as interesting as possible. The goal here is to have an interactive experience. I want you to hit the ground running and start becoming the person you're excited to become while you're reading this book, instead of just becoming someone who now has a lot more information about what habits are, or who understands the science behind how habits work, or who knows how it feels to fall asleep with a book about habits lying on your face. Please get a new notebook and dedicate it exclusively to the work we're about to do. And start cultivating your new habit with a clean slate, focusing on the exciting new life that awaits you, as opposed to letting failures you've experienced in the past cloud your confidence. Who you desire to become is not only available to you, but you're meant to become this upgraded version of yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the desire in the first place, and you sure as hell wouldn't be bothering with this book. Trust that each new day holds untold possibilities, and remember, in every moment, you have the profound ability to make choices that will completely change your habits and your reality. Either right away or over time, making powerful, life-altering choices is simply a habit. A habit that you've already started mastering. Gave up being a lazy ass and got in shape. Julie, 60. My doctor told me I was headed for type 2 diabetes and that I needed to move more and try to lose some weight. I didn't like the sound of needing to be on meds my whole life, and I also didn't like having a solid 10 to 15 pounds of extra blood in my club. So I decided that rain or shine, I could manage to exercise every morning before work on a yoga mat in my living room for at least 15 minutes. How hard is that to do for my health? I found a great online workout that was a combo of yoga, stretching, muscle strength, and cardio. Every morning I pulled that yoga mat out of the closet, and I found that after stretching and doing some basic yoga moves, I was awake enough to do a little more. I did some strength training exercises using my own body weight, and thought, geez, if I weighed less it wouldn't be so hard to hoist my petard off this mat. 3 push-ups led to 5 to 10, and now my daily routine is about 30 minutes total. As soon as I started doing this, I began to feel better about myself. The thrills from the little wins will keep you rolling toward victory. I felt stronger. It kept me motivated, and I now look forward to doing my workout at least 5 days a week. At the same time, I started an online diet and health program that taught me about the psychology of why I eat and how to change my lifelong habits. This was an eye-opener. Mindless eating versus mindful eating was huge. I learned to actually look at the food I was eating, not at the TV, to take a moment between bites and really taste what I was eating, not just chuck it down my gullet. I also learned to understand my personal hunger scale. When I wanted something to eat, I would ask myself, am I actually hungry or just bored, stressed, sad, or agitated? Another tip was not waiting until I was at code red, level starving on my hunger scale, because that means you grab anything from a vending machine or dive into the leftover donuts from the morning meeting. I learned other strategies and hacks. A big one was to always have healthy, yummy snacks in my bag, at work, and at home. If you're planning to eat dinner out, go online and look at the menu ahead of time and figure out what the best choice is and stick with it, because otherwise, you'll see what everyone else is ordering and fly off the calorie rails. The other big change of behavior for me was to start writing down everything I ate every day to be more mindful of what I was eating, and weighing myself every day. Sounds hideous, but it worked. It's now 2 years later and I've lost 15 pounds, but more importantly, I've kept it off. I continue to weigh myself every day and track my daily food. I have learned that this is what works for me. Of course, there are days I go way over my calorie target for the day, but I don't get upset about it. I just adjust the next day. Believe me, I love food, and I still eat what I want. I just monitor my portion sizes and always try to tap into mindful eating, not mindless eating. Chapter 1: Who You're in the Habit of Being. My brother Stephen and his wife, Jenny, came for a visit one year during Fiesta de Santa Fe, a historical celebration that attracts thousands of people to my New Mexican hometown every fall. We didn't participate in any of the festival's festivities during their stay, but we did brave the throngs of revelers in order to walk downtown and have ourselves some margaritas. The walk took us about 45 minutes each way, and after a lovely afternoon of cocktailing, we found ourselves back in my driveway just as the sun was setting. We stood around, taking in the reddening sky, slightly buzzed on tequila and the smug satisfaction of having made it all the way there and back on foot, when out of nowhere, Jenny started clutching at her throat as if she couldn't breathe. She'd suddenly realized, with horror, that somewhere along the way her diamond pendant had fallen off the chain around her neck and was lost. My brother immediately flew into action. "I'll retrace our steps," he said, his eyes thoroughly scanning the ground beneath Jenny's feet before he slowly and methodically turned and headed back out my driveway. I began protesting that it would be dark in a matter of minutes, that he was high if he thought he could find her itty-bitty diamond among the sea of fallen leaves and hordes of people. But Jenny turned to me and said, "Let him go. He's weirdly amazing at finding shiny things. He's like a crow." So we stood and watched as Steve headed down my street and back into town, with nothing but his cell phone flashlight lighting his way and the thrill of the quest lighting his heart. Meanwhile, Jenny and I got in my car and headed back to the bar to crawl around on the floor and see if we could find her pendant ourselves. On the way we passed Stephen, who simply raised his free hand in the air and waved when he heard us honk and holler, unwilling to take his eyes off the ground for even a second. After about 10 minutes of trying, and failing, to find a parking place in the midst of the melee, I was about to give up and head back home when we got a text from my brother that read, "Found it." To which I replied, "I don't believe you," to which he replied with a picture of himself standing in the middle of the street, each arm around a tourist he'd talked into posing with him, proudly holding Jenny's pendant in his front teeth. I later learned it had been kicked off the sidewalk into someone's driveway and that he found it anyway. My jaw hit the floor and has remained there ever since, but Jenny just shook her head and said, "I'm telling you, he's a crow. He finds shit all the time." Steve used to have a job in the diamond business as a sorter. He'd spend his days in a room called the pit with a handful of other sorters, categorizing large piles of not-so-large diamonds according to the 3 Cs, cut, carat, color, by holding each one up to a light with a pair of tweezers and looking at it through a loupe. While inspecting a diamond, it wasn't uncommon to accidentally tweeze it a bit too hard and send it ricocheting across the room, doink, where it would land somewhere on the not-so-clean linoleum floor, on a shelf, or perhaps in someone's hair. There was no telling how many precious stones had gone missing in the pit over the years, and finding them became a perpetual Easter egg hunt, one that Steve participated in with vigor every time he put down his tweezers, for the 2 years that he worked there. This is how, in the basement of a diamond wholesaler on 47th Street in New York City, Steve became the patron saint of lost shiny things. His impressive resume went on to boast of a diamond earring discovered on the floor of a crowded deli, a tennis bracelet spotted next to an ATM machine, countless coins, chains, keys, watches, precious stones, and one morning, while walking to the train, he found the necklace that Jenny had lost 3 months before, nestled in the top of a snowbank. Steve never zeroed in on the tiny, lost, and shiny until he worked in the diamond business. But thanks to that job, always being on the lookout, consciously and unconsciously, became a habit. Habits, no-brainers, a routine tendency or behavior, knee-jerkery, beliefs, thoughts, and actions that one repeats on autopilot. Here are some of the key elements involved in habit creation. 1. The trigger. Every time Steve took a pause from his work, it triggered his habit of scoping the room for lost diamonds. Triggers send cues to our brains that it's time to perform a habit. A trigger can be a sound, an action, a thought, a feeling, a smell, a sight, or an emotion. Triggers begin a chain reaction that results in the completion of the habit. And the sequence goes a little something like this. 2. The sequence. Our bodies are expert problem solvers, running around with a clipboard, making sure everything's working in the most efficient and productive manner possible, moving blood where it's needed most, breaking down food, healing broken bones and torn skin, sprouting hair and toenails, taking down disease, unleashing a flood of tears and obscenities when you accidentally drop your phone in the toilet. Habits are the body's way of lightening the load on our brains, of putting problem solving on autopilot in order to free up room to take in more information and perform more tasks. Habits work in a sequence of sorts that starts with the trigger, which signals a need, which then leads to a habit or response, which then leads to the reward. Here are some more examples. Trigger, your dog walks into the room. Need, to physically experience his insane cuteness. Response, habit, smothering, kissing, acting like a moron. Reward, you feel happy. Trigger, you're driving home from work. Need, to live a longer, healthier life. Response, habit, stop at the gym and work out for 45 minutes. Reward, you feel invigorated and have a sense of accomplishment. Trigger, your divorce lawyer calls. Need, to not throw a plate at the wall. Response, habit, pace around in circles and twirl your hair around your finger. Reward, you feel calmer. These are all examples of how triggers set your habits into motion. But triggers can also be used to help you quit bad habits, and I'll show you how to do that later in the book. 3. Repetition. Think of your brain as a jungle full of images and ideas and feelings all growing and twisting and tangling around one another as you gather more and more information throughout your life. Now imagine that all of your thought patterns and knee-jerk reactions and beliefs about the way things are have cut well-worn paths through this jungle in your mind. Paths that you walk down every day, do to do, without even needing to look where you're going. When you decide to make a change, hey, I'm no longer going to be a lazy, out-of-shape person who secretly litters. I'm going to step it up and get me some different habits. Repetition is the tool you'll use to hack through the vines, wrestle fallen trees out of your way, and forge a new path through the jungle of your mind. Repetition of your new habit will require some mental and physical effort at first, but the scales on the piano that you struggle to remember and execute become second nature after you've played them 300 times. Tying your shoes after decades of doing it takes zero thought these days. Answering questions with a "you betcha" tiger unconsciously comes flying out of your mouth after making fun of grandma for saying it your whole life. I'm so in the habit of calling my mother to check in on her when I get in my car each morning that I once dialed her up while she was sitting right next to me in town for a visit. When you repeat something enough times, you establish new neural pathways in the brain that your habit flows through effortlessly and automatically, allowing you to literally fug a tab out it. Take a moment right now to think about something you used to struggle with that's now a habit. Working your cell phone, shaving, hitting a tennis ball, driving a car, respecting your neighbor Sarah's wishes that you refer to her as Desert Flower from now on. It's nearly impossible to remember all the little details you used to have to keep in mind when you were anchoring in this behavior that's now a habit, because you literally changed the wiring of your brain through repetition. 4. It's no big surprise to discover that the easier things are, the more likely we are to do them. This goes for the habits we'd like to form, the habits we'd like to break, and the habits we don't even realize we've signed up for. My brother didn't set out to be the guy who finds sparkly stuff that most people don't see. He developed the habit because it was easy. It was fun, everyone around him was doing it. He repeated the action of searching over and over again every day, and he got a rush every time he found something good. Steve unwittingly followed the golden rule of habits. The easier you make it to put them on repeat, the more success you'll have. This is why scheduling new habits first thing in the morning often gets you the best results. It's easier to do things before the distractions of the day worm their way into your progress. This is also why who and what you surround yourself with is so crucial. It's easier to quit drinking soda if you surround yourself with people who don't drink it and if you never keep any in your house. It's easier to go to yoga if the studio's just down the street. It's easier to be successful if you hang out with inspiring, successful people. It's easier to stop watching TV if you keep it in the garage. It's easier to have a negative outlook on marriage if you're raised by divorced, unhappy people. It's easier to accept fish as a breakfast food if you live in Japan. 5. Patience. Most habits score woefully low in the immediate gratification department. With the exception of things like taking a shower, making your bed, or eating breakfast, most habits take a while to produce the desired result, which makes them more difficult to stick with because we humans love us some payoff. Eating lentils instead of ice cream will eventually, hopefully, help lower your cholesterol. Lifting weights every day may or may not take forever to produce a tight ab or the swell of a new muscle. Meditating for 30 minutes a day may one day make you instantly feel more calm and centered, but first it may leave you wondering what the hell the point is for years. This is why things like relishing the fact that you're showing up at all is so important, why keeping track of the progress you've made so you can see how far you've come is so helpful, why looking for the little victories and rewards is so encouraging. Anchoring in a habit is like moving a giant pile of pebbles from one place to another. Stone by stone, you make a tiny dent. Hone your moves, it gets easier and easier every time you do it, and eventually you will indeed be staring at a new pile of rocks. You just can't always see your progress as it's happening. Later in the book I'm going to give you tips that'll help you practice patience and stay the course while your habit takes its own sweet time to settle in. But right now I want to go deeply into the most important tip for creating a new habit, and for making any major upgrade in your life. Really, shift your identity to match the habits you're adopting. Shift your identity to match the habits you're adopting. 6. Identity. Studies have shown that nearly half of the actions we perform every day are habitual. Drinking a cup of morning coffee, praying, slouching, bitching, talking with our mouths full, looking for shiny things on the ground, etc. But habits are responsible for much more than just the actions we take. Our beliefs, thoughts, and words are also habits. Habits that inform the way we perceive the world around us, mold our identities, and, yes, take the actions we take. One of the main reasons we fail to stick to new good habits and ditch negative ones is that we focus on changing what we're doing without also making sure that we embrace this habit as a new and valuable part of our identity. For example, if you decide you're going to lose 30 pounds, along with refraining from eating a bunch of crap, filling your fridge with healthy, low-cal food, working out, and getting a tattoo that says if it's fried, it's denied. You also need to become the person who weighs 30 pounds less, who struts around like, yeah, this is my body. These are my excellent eating habits. It's no biggie. It's just who I am and how I roll. If you're identifying instead as the heavier version of yourself who somehow miraculously dropped 30 pounds, you'll most likely put the weight back on because you're still identifying as someone who has a weight issue. It's why people who win the lottery almost always wind up broke again. They still identify as broke me. Rolling in the dough. Who would have ever thunk it? I keep waiting to wake up and wind up back in my normal life. This amount of money doesn't even seem real. Etc. Even though they've suddenly become rich. In Alcoholics Anonymous, along with laying off the booze, refraining from hanging out in bars, and calling your sponsor whenever you feel yourself slipping, you're also asked to anchor in your identity every time you speak at a meeting. Hi, I'm Janice, and I'm an alcoholic. By owning the fact that you're an addict and, hence, cannot and will not touch a drop of alcohol, you're much more likely to successfully dump your drinking habit than if you identified yourself this way. Hi, I'm Janice, and even though I wake up hungover and unsure of where I am on a regular basis, I can handle the random cocktail here and there. No problemo. By shifting your identity to align with the habits you're working to adopt, you prepare yourself to live in a totally new reality by erasing the inner struggle of I'm doing X but I'm actually an imposter, so it probably won't last because it's not really who I am.